Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fan Friction. I'm your host, Jack Shipley. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we have three very special guests, so let me get right into it. Here's who's here. Our first guest has made several appearances on our show and is the only fighter to have beaten the host. That would be this guy at his own game. Welcome back to our show, Langley M. Neely.
Howdy, people. Howdy, people. Let's do it.
Good to see you again, sir. I met our second guest at Wizard World Philadelphia, representing Comicsverse. He's a Screen Junkie superfan, and he's here today to prove he knows his stuff. Please welcome Brad Sloan.
Good to be here, Jack. Nice to see you again.
Thanks for coming. We appreciate you being here. And finally, we welcome a very special guest. You've seen him all over the interwebs talking comics, movies, and more. He's one of the hosts and producer of Superhero News. Please welcome to our show, Adam Hlavik.
I'm here to get murdered by everybody. Hello.
Welcome, Adam. Thank you very much for being here today. We appreciate you joining the show. And help keeping track of the facts today are the hosts of BFF, a show right here on TUFF that examines what we do and analyzes it. It's really great. Ashley and Joe Davis. Welcome back, guys.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
I'll be following you guys on Twitter at #ThisIsTuff. I'll be putting up some polls, and I'll also be doing my best to keep an eye on the YouTube chat.
Fantastic. Guys, if you've never seen the show before, welcome. Here's how the show works. All of our scoring is based on facts presented along with passion and creativity of our fighters' arguments, not on what we may personally think is the best. Part 1 will feature 4 rounds of movie and TV debates with the first 2 fighters with the most points moving on to the lightning round. And then our lightning round is a best of 5 speed fight to determine who is the winner of today's Fan Friction. With that being said, I think it's time to get into it, guys. Let's do round 1. All right. Joss Whedon recently commented that he'd like to direct a Star Wars movie in the Star Wars story format of Rogue One. We want to know, what is the best show or movie by writer-director Joss Whedon? So for this round, we are going to start with Langley. What'd you pick?
Okay. Well, when I thought about Joss Whedon, you got 2 tracks. He's a great writer, and he is an excellent director. And I think the movie that demonstrates both is The Avengers, because not only did he write it, but he also demonstrated in this is like maybe his second big budget film, where he actually managed to take 4, 5 disparate superhero characters and merge them into what a lot of people consider the best superhero movie ever made. And I think the reason that he was able to do that is because he was at it was at its peak at the time. Like, I remember announced that Joss Whedon was going to make The Avengers. People actually doubted that would work out. I don't know why they did, but here was a person who excelled at being able to write for multiple characters and has an imagination like nobody's business. And if you like Avengers or not, because I do think some people like to argue that The Dark Knight is a better film than The Avengers, but all you have to do is look at the influence of The Avengers in both television and in film. Everyone is chasing after this whole cinematic universe thing, and that started with The Avengers. And I can go into more detail about it, but let's move along and get to the debate.
Yeah, let me get Adam in here. Adam, what did you pick?
I picked Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the series, which was on WB, 144 episodes, and I picked it because, in my opinion, aside from it being something that Joss Whedon could really sink his teeth into, no pun intended, it was something that he created, that he really devoted his time and energy into, and was able to really explore a lot of different things, a lot of different types of storytelling, a lot of different styles, and I think it also has it's hugely important. It really showed that you can have a character like Buffy and it's loved by everybody. It doesn't need any sort of comic book history, backstory, or anything. It really can stand on its own. And I thought it was a very important show that surprisingly I didn't think I would care for, but I really fell in love with.
Awesome. And Brad, what did you pick?
Well, these are all great choices, guys. I appreciate all of them, all great movies and television series. But lest we forget that Joss Whedon was actually a co-writer for the classic Toy Story, which is just a superior film to these films in almost every way. I mean, the characters, Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, some of the best voice acting work ever. The iconic score and soundtrack, You Got a Friend in Me, it's a classic, you know. And this is the film that launched Pixar into what it is today, which is basically the universe that raised me, the Pixar universe, and it's just incredible, and that's really all I have to say about it.
All right, then guys, fight.
Well, I think
Okay,
that both. We in this already. We in this. Go ahead, Langley.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, I would, the first thing that I would say is when you look at what those other movies are, and Toy Story, you have Toy Story, which is being back different people other than Joss Whedon. You know, it's more of a committee process. There's a lot of people kind of helping to make the story, and while it is a great movie, really Joss Whedon pushing it from start to finish. The Avengers is kind of the same thing. The Avengers was part of this well-oiled machine that was built by Kevin Feige that didn't start with the Avengers. It started with Iron Man. And I think the reason why it was so successful in part was because it's Joss Whedon, but I think a lot of it was also because they had built up to it for 5 other movies. It's the 6th movie in a series. If it was the first, then I would totally agree with you that, yes, Joss Whedon is the one responsible. It's Joss Whedon, but it's also other people that kind of help make that. Whereas it was something that he showed up and he said, I want to make this. This is what I want to tell. This is the story I want to tell. And it is something that, you know, even though show, it got a lot of critical acclaim. So I think in terms of its importance, but also in terms of the best for Joss Whedon, really something that allowed him to be 100% kind of in control of what this show was and where it could go. Whereas the other ones, you know, he was kind of one person of a committee that had to tailor their movies to a certain vision.
Well,
okay. Well, I'll say this about the argument of Buffy being the pinnacle of what he could do and what is original. Buffy is a great, great show, television. I'm going to read a list of things, okay? And then maybe you can see where I'm going with this. Teen Wolf, The Vampire Diaries, The 100, Supernatural, Grimm films, Charmed, The Originals, Ringer, Star-Crossed, The Secret Circle. Now, I read all of this is because, in my opinion, Buffy is single-handedly responsible for the YA boom in film and television, which we have been drowned with. Basically, Vampire Slayer, we have been inundated with copy after copy after copy of shows, some actually made by other Whedons, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that have tried to copy Buffy to the point where it has choked basically an entire genre. I mean, you've got one movie with Shailene Woodley is now, they're not even making movies anymore because people are sick of the campy, will they or won't they, oh no, that vampire is evil, but I love him thing. And I think you can lay that at Joss Whedon's doorstep with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And with Toy Story, I will say, Toy Story is wonderful, it's great, but Joss Whedon got his start as basically a script doctor. He is responsible for all sorts of scripts that are both good and bad. Toy Story is one of them, and it's really somebody else's vision that he then came in and fixed. So yes, I will agree that it's not him 100%, but with the Avengers, I actually think it's the best because, like you said, Adam, he had to take other people's creations, mix them together along with the whole corporate mandate of Marvel. And he not only created a good movie, he created a better movie that everybody loves and actually created this whole thing of, with every Marvel movie, we actually expect them to do. That wouldn't have to make an Avengers.
So it's interesting that both your guys' arguments against Toy Story is that maybe he had collaborators, he wasn't the sole creator of the universe and of the film. But the question itself is best movie written or directed by Joss Whedon, not best Joss Whedon movie. So I don't necessarily think that his connection to it has to be a full 100%. I mean, this is just like battling what the question is. And at the same time, because he's a screenwriter in this film and not a director, it's difficult and almost impossible to tell how much exactly he added or got rid of in the script. So if your argument is simply on the semantics of the question or how much he wrote in the script, and you can't really argue much against the movie itself, which is a near perfect film, where I would say that the Avengers, while it's a fun film, it ultimately falls short in the third act with the usual sky-hole plot and the villain who doesn't really know what he's doing other than flying around. And the Avengers takes an existing IP, which everyone already loves the characters from the comics, and it does a decent job portraying them. But Toy Story took a non-existent IP and became so iconic that it is now one of the most well-known IPs in the world and in entertainment history. And Buffy's a fine television series. It had its good seasons, it had its bad seasons, but ultimately it just doesn't stand up against Avengers or against Toy Story, in my opinion.
I would say that, Langley was mentioning that we can blame a lot of the YA on Joss Whedon, whereas now I feel like we can blame a lot of what Joss brought to the table for the Avengers into influencing all these other studios to create their own verses. It's partially in Marvel, but a lot of it is because Avengers was so successful. If Avengers was a bomb, you wouldn't have every single studio trying to build cinematic universes. So it's like you can't really blame Joss Whedon that there's YA stuff. It's so it's like
that is the best Avengers film. Civil War is the best Avengers film.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at Avengers: Age of Ultron, and it's like Age of Ultron, kind of question, not that great. It's more of a prequel to Civil War.
Yeah, but we're not talking about Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Sure, but you were talking about the influence.
Sure. Now, I will say the argument of Toy Story, you kind of nullified your argument when you said that we can't tell what part of Toy Story is his and what part is other people. So therefore, it kind of negates saying that it's his best when you can't even really say what is it. And as far as the movie is concerned, I would say that Avengers fit.
But because we don't know, that can't be an argument at all. You can't use it against me. You can't use it for me. We just leave it alone, let it be.
I would say that's a valid argument.
Really?
Yes.
Well, how?
Yeah, because
ask a writer like Max Landis. How much of Power Rangers was his? None. But how much of Chronicle was his? All of it. We don't really know. Like
he wrote his name. If his name is on it, but like I'm saying, your argument is that it's co-written by someone else.
Yeah.
So therefore, you also said that the argument is that you don't know what is his and what isn't his. So that kind of negates the idea that it's Joss Whedon's best, regardless of if you want to do the whole semantic thing of, well, he wrote it, or is it a Joss Whedon film?
It's the question was best film written or directed by Joss Whedon.
Same thing. It doesn't really matter.
Well, let's start with final thoughts. Langley, why is the Avengers better than Buffy and Toy Story? Oh, Langley, did you freeze?
I'm sorry, say it again.
I said, Langley, give me your final thoughts on why yours is better than Buffy or Toy Story.
Okay. Well, I would say it's the definition of Joss Whedon working on both levels as a director and as a writer. Yeah, you can make the argument that he took somebody else's stuff as far as an IP like Marvel and worked it together to make something fresh and new, but he did it in such an effective way that, like you said, everybody is copying him. But that first one, the original one, is the best. He not only was able to take great movies like Iron Man, subpar movies like, Thor and Iron Man 2, and mix it together in a way that everybody had dreamed of seeing that before, but no one had ever actually witnessed it. And I actually remember there was doubt that can Avengers live up to all of the hype? It not only lived up to the hype. And I think that's the reason why it is his absolute best, in my opinion.
All right. Adam, why is Buffy better than Avengers and Toy Story?
I would say that Buffy is better than both of those, primarily because, again, it's something that came from him originally. It's something that he created. Yes, he was able to take, what the other movies did and kind of made one great dessert. But this one he was really able to shepherd all the way through its run until, I think, 2002. And because of that, like Angel, we've got a comic book series that's been ongoing ever since, and it's a show that's gotten Emmy Award nominations, multiple things. So I think because of that, because of all those things that Buffy kind of created, all these things that it spun off, even YA, why not? I think all those things kind of lend itself to the success of why Buffy was so influential, and that is because of what Joss Whedon brought to it. And I think with these other two, you know, he had a say in it, but not as much as obviously a show that he had created, produced, written for, directed, etc., etc.
All right, Brad, same question. Final thoughts.
So I think what it comes down to is that you can poke holes in Avengers and even point out flaws like the entire third act or things like that, that it's not even the best Avengers movie, where Civil War would be the best Avengers movie, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinions. You can poke holes in Buffy. It was arguably miscast the lead. It doesn't hold up if you look at the ridiculous costume design from back in the day. But you cannot poke holes in what Toy Story is, which is a near-perfect film. And if the only argument against mine, because I haven't heard them say anything negative about mine, if the only argument is semantics on how involved Joss Whedon is, I think that it should be no competition on which is the best film of the three, which is what the question asks.
All right, guys, good job. Well fought. Let's go to Ash and Joe. What do we got as far as the facts and Twitter?
All right, so Buffy ran, according to the Internet Movie Database, until 2003. On Toy Story, Whedon was one of 4 writers, and on the Avengers, he co-wrote with Zach Penn. Out of nominations and stuff, of course, since Buffy was a TV show, it was on the air for multiple seasons. It has 52 wins of various awards and 129 nominations, whereas the other 2 don't have as many because films, they can only get nominated for so many things. But other than that, it's pretty clean round. Oh, one thing on the YA, it's really hard to pinpoint like what's influenced what. Buffy probably had some influence for a while, but then things like Twilight would have a resurgent, Harry Potter, Hunger Games. So it's hard to just, you can't say everything that's currently on television is from that. That's
on Twitter.
Can I say? I'm sorry. Go on.
We got quite a few people checking in. Eric Monroe and Morgan have both checked in for Go Team Langley. We have the Avengers. Hamza Juicer selected the Avengers, but he said he's surprised Firefly or Serenity wasn't picked over Toy Story, Cabin in the Woods, X-Men, Speed, etc., all these other things that some of them I didn't even know he was involved in. And that he loved the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. one. And Samuel Catlin is checking in, even though it's 3 a.m. for him right now?
4 a.m. in Australia?
Yep.
Hey,
so.
All right, guys. This was a difficult first round for me. Firefly is the answer, but since I have to choose from one of your picks, we're going to go with, let's see. Well, Brad, the problem with Toy Story is not necessarily that he was one of a team, but that you shot your own foot by telling everybody he's one of the team. And I think you gave them the argument against yourself in that one, because then they jumped all over it. And I think they're kind of right. It's difficult to say what specifically about that movie that made it great was influenced by Joss. And I think I'm going to go with a pick that has a little bit more of that flavor. So for me, it's between Langley and Adam. Langley talked about how he had to put together let me put this in front of me so I can look at the screen. He talked about how Avengers had to take characters from 6 other movies and blend them in together to make one really great movie, and that he accomplished that goal. Whereas Adam's focus was on the fact that everything in Buffy is 100% Joss Whedon. He had total control over it, which I think is a strong argument as well. I don't really count the YA thing because it's not Joss Whedon's fault that YA happened because of Buffy. So, and I don't blame him for that. Buffy is still a great series. But I think the thing that really kind of stuck with me, since Joss Whedon did have creative control over both of these choices, I think having to take characters from 6 other movies and then putting them together in one movie and having them not suck is probably the bigger accomplishment in that sense. Whereas when you have 144 episodes, you have time to kind of get it right, where he had one chance to get the Avengers right. And that was really the first shot we had at seeing a movie like that. So I'm giving the first round to Langley. Good job. What did the Twitter poll say?
Okay. Can I just say for the record?
Hang on 1 second, Langley. Real
Okay,
quick.
go ahead.
The poll is 75% for Avengers and 25% for Buffy. Unfortunately, Toy Story did not get any love, which is criminally underrated in that regard.
How many of those people have actually watched Buffy?
I did watch Buffy. Actually, I liked Buffy a lot.
I hated this
didn't mind the
question.
musical episode. I thought
I
musical
own the role-playing game.
I absolutely adore Buffy and could not find a single thing to say against it other than that bullshit argument about YA stuff. And I knew it was BS.
Yeah,
Oh
Buffy
my
was a
God.
great show.
And
The
I
first season
also
was
I
kind of
picked
weak,
Toy
but
Story.
yeah, Toy Story is a great movie. It was a good pick and a good first round, guys. So let's move on to round 2. This is our blind fight round. What we've done is we wanted to find out which actor gives the best performance as Batman. But rather than have everybody say the same answer or pick mostly the same people, we're going to do it a little differently. We're going to do a random blind fight. So what that means is I have 5 actors who have played Batman. Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, Adam West, Kevin Conroy, and Christian Bale. So everybody's going to pick a random number, and they're going to get assigned a Batman, and we're going to find out which of those Batmen is the best. So, Adam, you're going to get to start. I need you to pick a number from 1 to 5.
Let's go with 4.
All right. And Brad, pick a number but don't pick 4.
I'll take 3.
All right. And same thing, Langley, don't pick 3 or 4.
2.
2. All right. That means, Adam, you are going to be fighting for Adam West, the OG Batman.
Good night, guys.
Brad, you're going to be fighting for Ben Affleck. And Langley, you're going to be fighting for Michael Keaton.
Hello?
So good luck, guys. Adam, you get to start us off.
Hey, well, I will say, I will give... Yes.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes,
We can hear you.
Crap.
I can hear you. We can hear you, but you obviously cannot hear us. This is the fun of the internet, folks.
Find all right. Wait.
We can hear you, Langley. Can you hear us?
Me now?
Yes. Can you hear me? I feel like we're in a Verizon commercial. Langley, back out and restart. Oh, I don't know. This happens once in a while.
I'm totally frozen.
Yes, we can hear him. He can't hear us. Here, I'll let him back out here.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. We'll let him get back in. So give us just a few moments, folks. Adam, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the things you're involved in?
Oh, boy. Let's see. So superhero news, that's on Fridays at 4. We do a show now on Twitch at twitch.tv/hyperrpg. That's Tuesdays at 7. This is all Pacific time, where we talk about all movies that are not superhero related. Also at Screen Junkies full time, Monday through Friday, doing a bunch of graphics and stuff. So if you watch Flash and Friends and you saw that sweet intro, that was me.
Awesome.
What else am I doing? We're going to be, Hector and I will be competing Schmodown. I believe it comes out on November 15th. It's myself and Hector versus Jason Inman and Scott Mance. God help us. What else? I'm going to be at Kamikaze, a.k.a. Stanley's LA Comic-Con next Sunday doing a panel, which is kind of like this. We're going to be arguing about who the best Superman is. It'll be myself, Hector, I think John Schnepp, and a few other people are going to be on that panel. What else am I doing? It's Halloween next weekend, so I can't wait for that.
Will you be doing a show that's like the concession stand?
That's what the show on Hyper RPG is. It's called Cinematic Universe, and that's basically what we do. Is we talk about the news, we watch all the latest trailers. We're going to be reviewing movies as well. We're going to be bringing on guests. Right now, we run that show out of superhero, like from my apartment, where we shoot superhero news. But our hope is to be able to transition it into a studio in the next month or two, that we can start bringing in a bunch of guests and stuff, and kind of expand that operation. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna try to hopefully go to a lot more premieres and stuff. Well.
He's back. Let's see if he kicked in here. Give him a second. Langley's just reconnecting. Langley, can you hear us? Langley, can you hear us? Earth
Smiling's frozen face.
Yeah, well, if you're going to have a frozen face, you should have the handsome face of Langley Neely. Langley, can you hear us? We do see him in the room, but he is not apparently responding to us. This is why we join the internet, folks, because YouTube is fantastic. as they downrate my episode of fan fiction. Langley, can you hear me? Langley, can you hear me?
Oh my God.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Can you hear us?
Okay.
There's no down rates yet.
Yes.
yeah.
Keaton.
All right, Langley, you back with us?
Yes.
All right.
Oh,
Even
my
if
God.
we can't see your face, we can at least hear you. So we paused the round real quick. So Adam's about to start with who are we doing again? I lost. Okay, so Adam's doing Adam West. Langley, you have Michael Keaton, and Brad, you're going to be doing Ben Affleck. Let's try this again. And Adam.
All right. So I got Adam West, and the one thing immediately that I will say, I feel like out of the three choices, this Batman had the opportunity because of the fact that it was a show, 120 episodes or so. He had the ability to be the most detective-like, even though, yes, he is campy. Yes, he is all these other things. But in 1966, that really helped put Batman back on the map. I think the comics at that point were almost on the verge of cancellation. But I think while the character is what it is, it's a time capsule, and it beautifully was able to explore elements of Batman that I think made the character fun and accessible to all audiences.
Awesome. Brad, give us an opening statement about, I have to keep looking, Ben Affleck.
Well, I got my boy Ben Affleck, and great actor, obviously, of course. New Batman. He's playing the Dark Knight Returns Batman, which is a bit older Batman, and he does a fantastic job showing the grit that was in the original comics of that series. He can play the billionaire, cocky, suave Bruce Wayne, as we see from that smirk in the scene with Bruce Wayne when they're going back and forth in that little exchange. He's got great chemistry with Wonder Woman, which is always important for Batman to have, as that's one of his love interests. He's also the best fighting Batman. He's the best action Batman. And I think that is one of the most important things you get in the Batman, because his fight scenes, unbelievably directed by Zack Snyder. That's the one thing he may have done right, was the Batman fight scene. And he really did make that movie. He was the standout in that movie. He beat Superman in his own movie. And that's all I got to say for now.
All right, Martha. Sounds good. Langley, tell us a little bit about Michael Keaton.
Okay, well, Michael Keaton basically was our first serious Batman. And at the time, everybody thought that was a mistake. You shouldn't cast him, just like people thought Affleck was a mistake. But with Michael Keaton, he not only brought seriousness to Batman, and demonstrated to everyone that Batman was more than what Adam West had brought to the role, but he was also subtle in his portrayal. When you actually look at Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne, you do not say to yourself, that guy is Batman. And there was a duality to the role that I think not only did it work for that first Batman in 1989, but it influenced pretty much almost every single iteration of Batman after that. And that's my argument for Michael Keaton.
All right, guys, fight it out.
Okay, so Adam West, I mean, you saw it in Adam's face when he got the pick. It's just like so ridiculously campy. It doesn't hold up at all. I mean, it's fun. It's what Batman shouldn't be anymore. It doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't. That's all it is. And to be completely honest, Adam West, to me, not necessarily a great actor, in my opinion. He's more of charismatic off-screen, if you ask me. I mean, he's great as a voice actor in Family Guy, playing himself. It's fun. It's not Batman, though. I'm sorry. And Keaton was way, like, I rewatched that actually 2 days ago, because in preparation for this fight, obviously. I rewatched it, and I was hoping I would get Keaton until I rewatched it, and I realized his portrayal does not hold up as well as I thought it would. He's way too over the top as Bruce Wayne. It's almost cartoonish at times. And for me, it just isn't what Batman should be anymore. Maybe back in the day it was good, but if you release that movie right now, people are not happy with that Batman portrayal.
Okay. I would say, as far as Ben Affleck's Batman, he's a great physical representation of Batman, but he is poorly written, and he was poorly directed in a bad film.
He's a great Batman. That's just the writing.
Yeah, but that's the embodiment of what the performance is. You have to have a director behind you to make the performance make sense. He is the dumbest Batman in all of the Batman canon. He's supposed to be a great detective, yet He is mesmerized by the fact that Martha is what Martha? That's my mother's name. How do you not figure that stuff out? But Lex Luthor can figure everything else out also. But I'm not going to get into Batman versus Superman. With Adam West is sweet. He's a wonderful old guy who gave us a portrayal of Batman a long time ago, but he's cheesy as hell. That entire series is not even what the original interpretation of Batman is. It's basically Batman as done by laughing. So,
well, I would say. Go ahead.
No, go.
No, I mean, I was going to say that, we're looking at all these things, and if you really, honestly, truly look at all three representations of this character, these are three versions of the character that are time capsules. There are perfect time capsules of their time. Michael Keaton, a Batman that is perfectly fit for the 80s. Ben Affleck is a perfect Batman for this current, video game Arkham Knight style series, where I also think he's poorly written. He doesn't do justice to who, no matter how many times people try to argue the fact that it's how they're building it. It's a good performance, but the question is, who gave the best performance as Batman? That's not really Batman. That's some weird, twisted, fringe Batman that person is a killer and all other things. But I would also say that Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne, while there are certain qualities of him, he doesn't have that suave personality that Adam West has. And Michael Keaton doesn't even come close to that suave personality. I mean, if you rewatch a lot of that stuff and you see his interactions with a lot of female characters, particularly the Catwoman, it's very, very smooth, very suave. He has one moment of that with Wonder Woman in the whole movie, and it's out of costume. Michael Keaton, even though he was great for certain parts of that Batman, it's a Batman that barely talks. It's like so we don't get much out of that character. Everything that we get out of him comes through as Bruce Wayne. And even that Bruce Wayne is a weird, twisted Bruce Wayne. The Adam West Batman, at least he is a perfect representation of what that time period was, the 60s. It's a hippy-dippy, trippy time. And that's all fair, but it perfectly represents what that world was. And that series did a lot to bring back Batman. It was a resurgence of Batman in a lot of ways. I mean, the comic, again, I'm pretty sure, fact check this, I'm pretty sure the comic book was on the verge of cancellation when this happened. When we got to 89 Batman, we had turns, we had Batman Year One. We already had this resurgence of Batman that kind of came through and allowed that Batman to kind of have his time. Same thing with Ben Affleck. We're in cinematic universes again. We've got the Arkham games. So when it comes to performance, though, again, Michael Keaton didn't really do much as Batman physical presence. Ben Affleck's Batman, poorly written. Okay, like the action stuff, yeah, the action stuff looks great. That might be the only thing he might have on the other two Batman. But I would say that in terms of how much detective work and how much Batman was Batman in the 60s show, as campy as it is, he actually did do a lot of detective work. And if it's detective, then I feel like that should be a major thing that should be explored for the character. I think the video games do it a lot better than Ben Affleck does in the movies.
Okay, so Adam West is what I like to call a Scooby-Doo Ben Affleck, or a Scooby-Doo Bruce Wayne. It's way too campy. You can't, in all three of these scripts, by the way, all three of these movies are probably the three most poorly written Batman movies. So using poorly written scripts against my Batman, I don't think is a very valid point, because we're talking about who's the best Batman, not who had the best script to work with. And the fact that we can walk away from that crummy movie, Batman vs. Superman, and say Bruce Wayne was great. At least one part of that movie shined, and it was Bruce Wayne, and it was Batman. He plays the role very well. It's Kevin Smith's favorite Batman. We all love Kevin Smith, right? He is suave. He showed it in the scene with the half smirk with Batman and how he flirts back and forth with Wonder Woman. He's a suave Batman. And Dark Knight Returns Batman isn't necessarily supposed to be as suave, but he still pulls it off very well. You can't argue for Adam West. I'm sorry. He's just way too out of his league here. And Michael Keaton, a lot of people say that the best part about him was that he played a good Bruce Wayne, not necessarily a good Batman. I don't even think he played that great of a Bruce Wayne, because if you look at what Bruce Wayne is, it's a man who's slowly driven himself a little bit insane and fights crime at night and hides that insanity that he has when he's in the mask of Bruce Wayne. where Keaton completely goes insane when he's Bruce Wayne and really shows that mask. If anything, I would know immediately that was Batman because how nuts this guy is. You know what I mean?
So let's do some final thoughts. Adam, why don't you sell me on why your Batman is the best Bruce Wayne out of the other two?
What?
Like why is your Batman's version of why is Adam West's Bruce Wayne better than the other two's interpretation of Bruce Wayne?
Sure. I would say that out of all three choices, he's the one who's allowed to have the most breathing room. He doesn't feel like he's just being Batman all the time. He's allowed to be. He's allowed to have that have more duality as to his what he does. He's able to be suave and comedic and all these sorts of things outside of being Batman. Whereas I think Michael Keaton's Batman is, one, nuts. Two, we don't get to see anything that really is within the realm of being Bruce Wayne. His philanthropy and all that kind of stuff. And with Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne, he's really also kind of psychotic and just really on the hinge. And it's Batman all the way through for him. So,
all right. How about you, Brad? Same question.
He's the Dark Knight Returns. He's supposed to be a little unhinged at this point. He's suffered the death of a Robin. It's insane. So I think that you saying that, in fact, complements the fact that you saw that can complement his performance. And you also mentioned earlier that he doesn't do any detective work. I think that this Bruce Wayne, this Ben Affleck Bruce Wayne, does the most detective work out of everybody, except maybe tied with Adam West, who played a Batman from a different era that doesn't hold up. And Langley's Batman of Keaton just has no chemistry with Catwoman, has nothing really special that stands out.
And Langley, you get the final thought.
Okay. Well, first off, I would argue that Ben Affleck's Batman and Bruce Wayne you can get a better version of that in the Arkham games, because that's the only good thing about his performance was the physicality of the role. I'm sure he would do better if he had a better movie, but the script, along with the acting, make up the performance, as well as who is behind the actor directing them. I would also say that the resurgence of Batman, you say that that the 60s Batman resurged because of Adam West. That might be true. There was a bigger resurgence after Michael Keaton. After Michael Keaton, Batman became more popular than Superman. Also, I would say that Michael Keaton's performance, he became crazy in front of the Joker in order to defend himself. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. That is pretty much the main example that I can see of him being crazy. What I like about his performance as Bruce Wayne and as Batman is that he is nuts. Batman is crazy. He puts on a freaking bat suit and goes out at night. And the argument that Michael Keaton's Batman doesn't work because he doesn't talk a lot, Batman shouldn't have to talk at all. Batman is about going out and scaring criminals because they are a superstitious and cowardly lot, and I'm going to dress like a Batman because I am screwed in the head, and I don't have to talk. I shouldn't have to talk about my mother, and I shouldn't have to talk about, I need to find the white Portuguese because I'm a terrible detective. I'm sorry, but Ben Affleck's Batman is a terrible detective just on the basis of Martha alone. And so Michael Keaton also is more iconic without nearly saying nearly as much as the talkative rat-a-tat, rat pack Batman or the psychotic Ben Affleck Batman.
All right, guys. Well done.
Really quick, can I just say that, let's be honest, we all wished for Kevin Conroy.
Oh, for sure.
Oh my God, yes.
For sure. Which makes this fight more fair, really, that no one got Kevin Conroy. It also makes it fair that no one got my least favorite Batman, Christian Bale. So this is a very equal fight for all of you. Ash and Joe, what do we got on the facts?
All right, so the Adam West Batman did bring the comic book from the brink of cancellation. And fun fact, he was cast as Batman because of an ad campaign where he was a secret agent in a Nesquik commercial. And this also almost landed him the role of James Bond, but he turned it down because he felt as an American he should not be playing a British character. But then it went to George Lazenby, who is Australian. And Kevin Smith's favorite Batman is Affleck, of course, but it used to be Keaton, and that's all for me.
So some fun stuff. Ashley mentioned the James Bond reference, and it's really hilarious because Nolan Dean would like to point out that Adam West is the Batman, what Roger Moore was to James Bond.
I like Roger Moore.
Eh.
Yeah, he's not that bad. He's no Sean
He's
Connery, but that's all right.
He's not the worst.
All the Bonds.
I also have Billy Turner checking in at Billy Turner saying the best Batman is the Lego Movie Batman, and Will Arnett is a pretty great Batman.
He is pretty great.
He's like the modern era Adam West Batman because he's silly and campy and fun, but still. We got a lot of love for both Keaton, or for mostly Keaton, and a lot of people kind of pointing out the camp of Affleck. And I have a poll whenever you have a second. Also, fun question from Hams the Juicer. If you guys want to check it out over on This Is Tough, I retweeted it as well.
Awesome. Guys, this is another tough round because, again, Kevin Conroy is probably our personal picks for favorite. But you guys argued this really well. Langley, I thought you did a good job of explaining why Nuts was appropriate for the character that Keaton had played. Brad, I really liked how you talked about, as far as action sequences were concerned, he's probably given us the coolest kick-ass Batman that we've seen in any show. And Adam, we got a lot of fun phrases out of your argument, specifically hippy dippy trippy, and we heard Scooby-Doo Bruce Wayne.
Put that in a t-shirt.
Which I think is pretty awesome. But I think you did nail it about how Adam West was able to be suave, and he probably did the most detective work out of all of the Batmans involved. I think the problem with Affleck's is not necessarily him, but more the writing that he had to work with. But I think you can't really ignore the whole Martha thing and Superman. If you watch the extended cut, especially, Superman does more detective work in that movie than Batman does, and he only has one film, which I think is hard on him. Langley, I think though the cartoonishness of your character also kind of took away from the portrayal of Batman, and I think Adam really kind of sold me on how much his Batman did for Batman as a whole, not just the show itself, but his comics. I'm going to go with the 60s Adam West Batman.
Wow.
And give Adam the point. Congratulations.
Couple side notes real quick. Also, Langley looked at pointed out that the Adam West Batman may have revived the comic book, but Langley's movie is probably the sole reason we have the animated series, which gave us Kevin Conroy. And what then did the poll say? That's what I was getting to next. There is a 80% majority for Michael Keaton, with a 20% for Ben Affleck, and a bopping goose egg for Adam West.
60s apparently.
Though I think I got the names wrong, but I'm pretty sure they're voting for the whichever Bruce Wayne it was, and not which person it was attached
you got
to.
it right.
Well, Keaton has always been my favorite personally, but I think Affleck is. I like Kevin Conroy. I kind of put him in a different class just because the animated series is such its own thing. But Keaton has always been my favorite, and Affleck is actually chasing that down rather well, I thought.
I'm not gonna lie. I love Batman for very different reasons. I think they're all great.
They are. We can all agree they're not George Clooney.
Oh yes, I think we definitely can.
Yeah.
Or Val Kilmer, really.
Now, hey, I actually could make an argument for George Clooney if I had to, but I'm glad that I didn't. So
I would say George Clooney plays a modern Adam West Batman.
No Batman has better nipples than George Clooney's Batman. And with that, let's move on to round 3. So this is our diversity round. Jessica Jones just announced that all 13 episodes in season 2 will be directed by women. Luke Cage recently tackled diversity issues in its superb first season. And so we wanted to ask our panelists, we want to choose a non-white role in movies played by a white actor or actress and then recast it with the object of the diversity in mind. And in this round, we are going to start with Brad. Who'd you pick, Brad?
I picked recasting Kevin Spacey's character from Pay It Forward of Eugene Simonette, which this movie is actually based on a true story. And the real man that was the professor was Reuben St. Clair. And he's a black man. And they decided to go with the approach of casting him as Kevin Spacey, probably because who knows why. But I decided to recast him with Denzel Washington, who was also up for the role, but ended up not taking the part I don't know why. It would have been perfect. I mean, if you look at Pay It Forward, it's a movie with a heartfelt story and an interesting take on like the coming of age story that ultimately falls short and received mixed reviews, strictly because it lacked maybe a standout performance even. The reason I would give Denzel Washington this role as Ruben St. Clair is because not only does it stay true to the real story that actually happened, but Denzel Washington's so charismatic as a father figure. I mean, he showed it before in tons of movies. Like Remember the Titans, I think, is a great example of how he can be that professor, that teacher of a group of kids that really helps them grow into their own. And yeah, I guess I'll end with that and hear everybody else.
Right. That's fair enough. Langley, who did you pick?
Okay. Well, I would have gone with superhero if I knew that's exactly where we were going, but I went to what, as an actor myself, as somebody who has performed this character, I went to what I think is the first and the biggest, most egregious error ever when it comes to whitewashing, and that is the critically loved at the time Othello with Sir Laurence Olivier. At that particular time in history, it was the early 60s. Olivier was attempting to get another Oscar. He was he was in the down scope of his career. And he decided it would be a good idea to put on blackface and play Othello. And granted, lots of people had done that before for hundreds of years since Shakespeare's time. But at that particular moment, you had one of, if not the greatest black actor, especially not just in America, but in the world, was on the rise, I think this is 1965. He was about to win an Oscar eventually. You had Sidney Poitier. And my argument is that Olivier, who actually directed Othello, should have cast Sidney Poitier in the role of Othello, and he should have played Iago. And he probably actually would have won the Oscar that he was craving instead of putting on blackface. And basically in the midst of the 1960s, when you have cultural revolution everywhere, he doubled down on basically ignorance. So that's my pick.
All right. Wonderful pick. And Adam, who did you go with?
I went the comic book route because that's what I thought we were doing. No, I'm kidding. I picked a character that, one, I think the history of the character is very interesting, and it was twisted into something else in a Christopher Nolan universe. I'm going Tom Hardy's Bane, and I would reason with the Spanish actor Javier Bardem. The reason for that is because I think first and foremost, we now exist in a universe where hero movies are the mainstream. They're the mainstream. So I think if you take a character like this, like Bane, who has history from the comic books ever since his inception, and you whitewash it, you are basically eliminating a role and from the history and the lore of Batman that I think is, one, important, and two, it really kills an opportunity for an actor because we've got plenty of other actors that are not Tom Hardy who could have played this role. But I think Javier Bardem, out of all the choices out, the best guy to take this character and to, one, root him back to his origin, and to give an opportunity for an actor like Javier Bardem to explore other ways. And it's just it's an important role, I would say, because it can influence so many other things.
All right, guys, fight it out.
So I think the reason that Bane unfortunately does not win this round against these other two movies is because, one, he's the only fictional character out of these three. Two, the character of Bane, if there are characters in comic book, in all mythology, that if you change their race or gender, it fundamentally changes their backstory and their character. Like when they were talking about casting Iron Fist as an Asian man, they can't do that because it fundamentally changes his backstory. Iron Fist needed to be a white guy or any other race other than Asian, adjusting to Asian culture and learning from Asian culture. Batman, however, could be white or black or Asian or Jamaican or Latino because it doesn't affect his origin story either of Bruce Wayne's. Bane's backstory can function no matter what gender he is, similar to Batman in that manner, where I think that he doesn't need to be any specific race, religion, or anything, as long as he goes through that whole prison. He goes through all all the things that he went through in the comics originally when he was created. Othello, yes, it's a terrible thing to wear blackface. Obviously, I mean, you can't argue against that. Even in the '60s when it was a different time, it's still a terrible thing to do. The character of Othello it's a Shakespearean character based on a real man who the real man was actually an abusive, wife-beating man, and the character itself is really just it's an offensive story in itself. That I think that while it is a terrible thing that you can't wear blackface, I think that it ended up working out better that he wasn't portrayed by a black man, because the movie itself, first of all, it's such an old movie and it's like just insulting racism in itself, the movie. And I think that it was I think it might have even been a direct choice by the director to cast a white man in blackface, because the movie is insulting itself.
Mic drop.
Well, okay. I will say one thing. First off, yes, Othello is based off of, characters and archetypes, but I would not say that Othello, the story, is inherently racist, depending on how you portray it. And I think that Othello as a character is complex, as is the character of Iago. Now, depending on how you look at that particular play or just that particular story, I mean, that has to do with your interpretation of whether you like it or not. But I would say that having a complex actor like Sidney Poitier play a character that at times is unlikable and horrible, but at the same time you are sympathetic to, just is what an actor craves. Like, you don't want, I mean, granted, at the time in the 60s, you had lots of instances where if you were going to have a black man on screen, he better be the Jackie Robinson of film. He better be impeccable. He better be like Obama. He better not have anything in his closet. And granted, Sidney Poitier was that, but that's why him playing Othello is so important, because I actually argue that if you had an example like that way back when, you wouldn't have the other egregious situations that we have in both of your guys' films. It would have set a precedent. It would have said, not only can you cast a capable black actor in a role as classic as Othello, directed by a genius director like Laurence Olivier, but he can also portray a character that is not perfect. He's not 100% the ideal African or black character, because Othello is not. You are correct in that. Now, I will say, when it comes to, and I've made this argument a lot, but I'm going to make it again, when it comes to both Pay It Forward and The Dark Knight Rises, yet again, I would not waste Denzel Washington's time, nor would I waste Javier Bardem's time with those two scripts. I do think that Denzel Washington probably said no to Pay It Forward because the script was not great. And the direction was not great. I watched that movie. I literally remember watching that movie, and the minute that Bon Jovi shows up with his perfectly coiffed hair, I laughed audibly because the movie was terrible. And then as far as The Dark Knight Rises, I agree. The character of Bane, yes. If you really look at the comic books or read anything, his heritage is important to who he is and where he came from. But I wouldn't want to see Javier Bardem put in that stupid mask with his face covered up and this pseudo version of Bane. I wouldn't even want to waste his time with that, because he's a better actor than that. Just like Denzel Washington is much better than Pay It Forward, the movie. The book of Pay It Forward, great piece of literature. The story that it's based off of is interesting and unique, and the movie is not.
Adam, I have a question for you real quick, and
Yeah.
I know you're about to speak too. Tell us a little bit more, for those who don't know, about how Bane's backstory and heritage specifically is important to that role.
Sure. So yeah, that's what I was about to get into. So Brad mentioned that the backstory it doesn't define characters. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's white, black, Asian, all that kind of stuff. To me, actually, it is very important, and the reason is because this is a character who grew up in a prison, Santa Prisca in northern Mexico, and the beautiful thing about what that that does, if they would have went with Javier Bardem playing that version of Bane, is it allows you to understand that this character is actually a lot more intelligent than what we got out of The Dark Knight Rises. The Dark Knight Rises, he was a guy who just dropped a bomb in the middle of Gotham and said, if you don't, meet my demands, I'm going to blow up your city no matter what. Whereas with Javier Bardem, you were able to access the origin of that character, a character who grew up in a prison in Mexico, who served a life sentence for his father. But because of that, he became Batman on the other end of the spectrum. He read, he studied, he trained. So you're giving this character, a character who in this movie was white or British, I don't know, supposed to be. You give it to a Latino actor of Javier Bardem's caliber, and sure, maybe the story isn't as strong as it could have been, but if you would have given that opportunity to a guy like Javier Bardem, he would have easily been the standout of that movie. People would be talking about that portrayal because, one, it gives that actor an opportunity to do things that character didn't get to do in that movie, and you get to explore the mentality of that character, why he is so strong. He studied, he learned, he's bilingual, he can speak English, Portuguese, Spanish. He's very much more a much bigger chameleon than what we got out of that movie. So if you give that to Javier Bardem, you're basically giving him the creative freedom to do that kind of and on top of that, again, superhero movies I think have a huge responsibility, and I think pay it forward while the movie's good, it doesn't have that cultural impact like what Dark Knight Rises has. Regardless of the quality of the movie, it's following the behemoth, the juggernaut that is the Dark Knight. So if you are able to take that role and give it to an actor that, like Javier Bardem, who is more in line with the origin of who Bane is, for telling the audience, and the same problem goes with Othello. It's accessible worldwide to everybody, to children and adults of all ages, and it basically tells them and shows them that there is more to this lore, more to the world than just a bunch of white people beating on each other. And I think that is super important. I make this argument all the time. Superhero movies are now the titans of cinema. They have a huge responsibility, I think, to in front of and behind the camera. People know, let audiences know of all races and all genders that there is someone representing you on either end. It doesn't matter whether it's a villain or the fact that there is diverse representation to me is. And I think that with Javier Bardem, we would have at least gotten some form of that. And I think it would have been important to have that version, that backstory of the character.
Well, you compared Bane to Batman in his origin story, like the opposite side of the spectrum. And like I said, I don't even think Batman's origin story needs to be a white, rich son. I think it could be a black, rich son, a Latino. It doesn't. I don't think the race necessarily, or the religion, or the gender even. Story itself, same goes to Bane. As you said, they're similar characters in their backstory where they go through a trauma and become what they become. So
Brad, if I may, real quick, Brad. So what I'd like you to do, because I want to get to final thoughts, just because we're going a little long. If you could tell me how Denzel in that role would elevate the role and pay it forward over the other two, that would be what I'm looking for next.
Sure, absolutely. So Kevin Spacey in the movie runs a bit flat. I think that's one of the biggest issues with the movie, and I actually really enjoyed the film. Film got very mixed reviews. It wasn't pooped on like all these guys are saying it was. It got about a 50 on Rotten Tomatoes, I think, and some people loved it, some people hated it. It was a touching story. It was actually a story that I thought had a lot of legs, a true story. And casting Denzel, who's so charismatic, I think would give it that extra push that it needs. And not only that, but it's such an insult to Ruben St. Clair himself that an African American man was not cast as him. Because he's currently, I mean, it's just tough to explain, but like, I feel like if you cast Denzel, a black man who was able to be in the role at the time, it would help the role, and it wouldn't insult Ruben as much, where these other roles, one of them is a fictional character who I don't think needs to be a character, and the other is just an out-of-date story that I think the story itself I think the story itself is making fun of what racism is in its narrative.
All right, Langley, final thoughts.
Well, I would first say that when it comes to the character of Bane and Javier Bardem playing him, Javier Bardem is a great actor, but let's not forget Tom Hardy is also a great actor. And I do think that for that particular version of Bane, which is what we're talking about in The Dark Knight Rises, he is more than adequate. I think that if you had a lesser actor in that role, not to say that Javier Bardem is a lesser actor, that like for what that role is, I think Tom Hardy does just fine. And I do think that in a weird way, Javier Bardem not being in that particular role, in a weird way, gives you the opportunity to revisit that question down the line, especially when we see Bane again in a bigger, better context. As far as Othello is concerned, there's a reason why Shakespeare's stories keep getting remade over and over and over again. They're not out of date. They actually touch on something that is primal within humanity as a whole, all around the world. Everybody knows these stories and these characters and these archetypes. And what film is, it gives you an opportunity to actually change every interpretation of a Shakespeare play or story. And at that particular time in the 60s, I think having a Black actor of Sidney Poitier's particular skill with a director like Laurence Olivier would not only, it wouldn't only elevate, say, race relations or the idea of racism. It would give you a fabulous freaking performance in a fabulous freaking film that probably would have gotten the Oscars that the director was chasing after by doing that particular performance in that particular film in the first place. As far as Pay It Forward is concerned, I think the fact that they were able to put Kevin Spacey in that film illustrates that though it did happen to a real guy and he was African American, it didn't facilitate him being African American when it came to the actual story that they were trying to tell, which demonstrates that, frankly, the movie is not that great, but also that Denzel isn't needed in that role. And I'm pretty sure at that particular time in history, Denzel Washington is a bigger star than Kevin Spacey. And if he wanted that role, he would have taken it. And I think the fact that he did not take it demonstrates what's going to happen and why that wouldn't work.
All right, Adam, final thought.
Final thoughts. Again, we're coming back to this whole thing of how it's not important for the character to be the race, or for Batman, I think it's totally fair. Because we have a lot of other superheroes that are of the same race and gender as this character. I think for Bane, because of the fact that he is particularly a character, again, it's opening up that opportunity to other actors. It's opening up that opportunity to other characters and lore who we presume all to be these like white American characters. It's important because, again, the Batman movies are accessible to everybody. Othello, Pay It Forward, they're not as accessible. They don't have kind of that they don't really have that kind of that a movie like The Dark Knight Rises, which is the critically most successful or financially it's the most successful Batman movie that's out there because of what had preceded it. So I think that you do have a responsibility to inform the world that there are other types of characters, other types of stories, and it gives other communities the ability to look at a character on the big screen and say like, oh, this is somebody from our culture, a villain. That's irrelevant, but there is that representation. There's someone standing on the screen that you can look at and say, cool, this is a Mexican character. So I think that's what that character has over the other two, because of the fact that one, again, it's something that would give this actor something different to do, and it would give us a more authentic origin of who that character is, but also because of the importance that it would have on the culture in general.
Fantastic, guys. It's a tough one. Diversity is always a difficult topic. Ash and Joe, what we got?
All right. So, of course, there's been a long history since Shakespeare's time and before of this whitewashing. And in fact, the character of Othello, it's debated, is he from sub-Saharan Africa? Because Moor meant a lot of different things in Elizabethan times, but either way, it's commonly interpreted as African character. And Olivier can be quoted online in various articles about how proud he was of the levels they went to make him look like that character, and I will not read it because it says some words that I think are inappropriate, but obviously not inappropriate for 1960s. And then with Pay It Forward, I could find nowhere on the internet that said it was based on a true story except for Wikipedia. Amazon, everywhere else I looked, said it's based off of a novel, and it always listed it in the category of fiction. So the character in the novel was African American, and they changed it, but I could find nowhere that it was actually based on a true story that happened. But of course, there are other events that inspired, like the Pay It Forward movement and such. And 40% on Rotten Tomatoes for that one, but 77% audience score, so 40% critic score.
And what did Twitter say?
Lots of little things here and there. Nolan Dean applauds Adam's comic book speech. Janine.
No.
Janine Bean, or as she's called right now, Janine Halloween, would like to bring up that sometimes race swap works. Case in point is Daredevil. Wasn't a great flick, but Michael Clark Duncan did a great job as a Kingpin. I am one to agree. Hamza Juzer brought up religious fantasy films as whitewashing, like Exodus, Noah, Gods of Egypt, Ten Commandments, etc., etc., etc. And Samuel Catlin would like to bring up that Javier Bardem might not be where he is today if it wasn't for the Iberian trilogy.
Oh, him and his Iberian trilogy. We're not doing that trilogy.
He wants me to watch that. I don't think I want to.
I don't think I need to see that trilogy, but thank you, Sam. Guys, this is a difficult round. Diversity is a very important topic, so I applaud everybody for diving in. I know it's not easy to discuss, but it's obviously a conversation we need to
Thanks for putting this in there.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we try to do a couple of these every season because we really want, to bring awareness. And I think the things they're going to be doing with Jessica Jones is fantastic. Luke Cage was a great show. So for me, all the arguments were good arguments. I think the one thing I heard with the Batman, anybody could play Batman. Well, it's easy. I think one of the things that we do when we talk about white roles is we go, oh, it's easy for the white role to be recast because it's a white role. But that's the whole point of why we shouldn't be doing it necessarily with diverse roles, because they're usually played by white people instead of the Asian role, the Mexican role. And I think for me, the argument that rang the most true was when Adam said that superhero films are in our forefront right now, and that they have a responsibility to teach. They inspire, and they have a responsibility through that inspiration to teach everybody that diversity is an important factor. And that I was thinking in my head as you were talking, Adam, like imagine Miles Morales being played by a white guy. The thought of it, like the outrage that would be involved in something like that. So I think for me, Adam, your argument about how superhero movies have the influence there really rang true. So I'm giving you the point. Congratulations, well done.
Our modern day mythology.
What did they say on Twitter or the poll?
Twitter is going to disagree with you, but not by a whole bunch. 57% for Othello, and 43% for Bane, and Simonette got 0%.
Oh.
Well, Brad, you are getting
that was an uphill battle for me.
It was a good try, though. No one's listening to the arguments. Someone had to lose.
When I saw that the fellow Sidney Poitier was picked, I'm like, how are people going to argue against that? Right. Especially considering that it was, yeah.
I was actually surprised because I was like, Bane, you would think might not have a shot in this round, but the argument was so strong.
I knew exactly where he was going to go with Bane, because Bane always should be Hispanic, and his origin story is beautiful, wonderful. And I read the novel for Nightfall as opposed to the comic book, and it goes into so much detail about his psychology. That character has to be Hispanic, and the fact that he has not is infuriating. So I agree.
I think he typically is represented as in a lot of the animated offerings of Bane.
Yeah.
But all the live action ones, he's either Tom Hardy or grunting. So it's really hard to.
And I think this new universe is the perfect opportunity for them to do this original version of Bane. It'd be awesome.
With the best Batman, Ben Affleck.
Calm down.
I also want to bring up that Pay It Forward is our topic of BFF this week. So we'll be.
I'm sorry, Joe, you cut out there for a second. Can you say that again? Oh, I think you're cutting out completely. But I think he said, oh, you know what? I think I know what he said. They're doing, on the BFF, our Because Fan Friction show, which they host, they're going to be doing Pay It Forward as their movie to analyze this week. So definitely check that out. Cool. They just dropped out, but they'll be right back. We're going to move on to round 4, which is our final round. Currently, the standings are Adam, you have 2 points. You are definitely moving on to the lightning round. Langley, you have 1 point. And Brad, while you have no points, you are still in it. If you can manage to get a point this round, you will tie, and we will go to a tiebreaker question. So we're going to do round 4 here, which is our superhero news category. I don't know where I got that name. There are currently 8 shows on television based on DC Comics properties like Supergirl, Gotham, The Flash, which is just fantastic. So we want to know who is the best character among all of these active shows. So the characters that you're about to hear are from the active DC Comics properties. We are going to go with Langley to start. And Joe, real quick, I did throw out that plug for you, but it did cut you out. But I got it for you. So Langley, go ahead. What did you pick?
Okay. When it comes to all the DC shows, and that also includes Vertigo, I was thinking about all these different characters. There's so many of them. Some of them are great. And I thought, which is the best character as far as the most interesting, unique, and something we really haven't seen in this particular way before? And so I went with Lucifer Morningstar from the TV show Lucifer, which not a lot of people, it's not a gigantic hit, but it got a second season pretty much on the basis of the performance by the main star and the character of Lucifer Morningstar. And so if you don't know what Lucifer is about, the name kind of clues you into it. He is the devil. He is the angel that got his wings ripped off, and his father, which is God, sent him to take care of hell. And basically one day, Lucifer decides to take a holiday, and he decides to go to what he considers the most depraved and sick and, according to him, the most fun place on earth, Los Angeles, California. And when he does that, he meets a detective, and he's mesmerized by the detective because she's the one human that he cannot mesmerize. He can pretty much tell anyone, any human anyway, what to do, and they are mesmerized to do exactly what he says. And what's interesting about season 1 is the show, it starts and it seems like it's just a procedural, which you go, why on earth are you going to take an interesting character like the devil and put him in a procedural? But it actually works. And what's cool about it is you take a character that pretty much in all of literature and just history is reviled, and it's the devil. And you turn him into not only an interesting character, a fun character, but he's a sympathetic character. Right now in season 2, his mother has just escaped from hell because he's not there to take care of hell anymore because he wants to go on vacation. And what's funny is his relationship with the female detective that he's partnered with, that he's so interested in and enamored with, he just discovered that every time he's with her, he is mortal. So he gets shot, and normally when he gets shot, nothing happens, but all of a sudden he can bleed out. And he still doesn't understand who she is and why any of this is happening, which is why he's an interesting character. And I'll go into more detail about the specifics of it, but I think Lucifer Morningstar is the best character that the DC TV shows have right now.
Fantastic. Adam, who did you pick?
This was a good question because yes, there are a lot of TV shows based on DC properties, whether it's DC proper or Vertigo. There are a lot of choices. Originally, I was going to go with The Flash, but I decided to go with something a little bit different, primarily because I think, and maybe people might say I sound like a broken record, but it's because of the importance of what the show kind of has to offer. So I went with Supergirl / Kara Zor-El, played by Melissa Benoist. She's a character that has a lot of uphill battles, I think, primarily because she comes from the same origin as Superman. And I think what the show that character so well, it allowed that character to exist on. And not only that, they were able to do certain things throughout the series that originally some of those stories are very much related to Superman, but they were able to take them and make them their own and still make it work really, really well. They gave that character great opportunities, and I think it also is a great inspirational vehicle for a lot of people. So that's why I went with Supergirl.
Awesome. And Brad, what was your choice?
I think we need to take a minute and applaud the show that really launched the whole Arrowverse, and that would be Arrow. Yes, Arrow has fallen off in season 3 and 4. It has become a campy soap opera CW show, but we need to remember season 1 and 2 were some of the best television that launched in the superhero universe, and their best character in those 2 seasons was Slade Wilson, who eventually became Deathstroke. I think that we're given many reasons in season 1 to find this character compelling, as in the Island flashbacks, where he acts as almost Oliver's mentor in the first couple of years before eventually becoming the evil villain that he becomes. For people that don't know the source material, like my friends Jordan and Matthew are huge fans of the show. The twist of him being season 2's big bad was this huge, unbelievable moment for them, for those that didn't know the name Slade Wilson. And they still tell me how much they love every episode that he's in and how much they miss him being on the show. And he's still alive. He could come back. Who knows? Probably not, though, because they're doing it in the movie. I think that having a backstory that makes viewers question whether to hate or to love this man, and eventually you're told to hate him, even though you still understand where he's coming from and what his motives are for why he doesn't like Oliver and why he's doing everything he's doing. His character development, I think, is better than any DC character on television, including your 2, who are not bad characters. I like both these characters. They're just I find them much less compelling than a character with tremendous pathos like Deathstroke is. And I guess I'll save the rest of my arguments for this fight.
Well then, guys, get it on. Fight.
Well, I will say that with Supergirl, my biggest complaint with Supergirl as a show and with Arrow as a show has been I like the fact that Supergirl is inspirational. It's a wonderful show for girls, but the Kara that is portrayed on Supergirl is Clark Kent in a skirt. The Kara from the comic books is not that kind of character. She's older than Clark Kent. She remembers living on Krypton, and yet she acts just like him. She's timid. She's even more reserved than Clark Kent ever was. And I get it. Like the producers of both, like Berlanti, who created Arrow and Supergirl, admit that Arrow and Supergirl, because he couldn't do a Batman TV show or a Superman TV show. And I have no problem with that, but my problem with Supergirl is that Melissa Benoist is a great actress, and the fact that she's already put so much love into that character is admirable and wonderful, but I think there is more room for her to actually play the Kara Zor-El from the comic books, where she has more fire in her belly, and she is a character that is brash and who has to learn, and to differentiate her from Clark Kent. She's essentially doing everything that Clark did, all the way down to now she's going to be a reporter, which I don't understand why you're doing that, other than you're just taking the archetype of Clark Kent and putting it in a female body, which, believe it or not, Kara Zor-El was not that. She started that way in the comics, but there are a lot better portrayals of her as a strong woman, which I think would be a better role model for girls and women watching the show than just being Clark Kent in a dress.
Well,
also,
I think that's kind of
Go ahead.
I think that's kind of the genius of the show, though. A character like Supergirl, a character who you kind of just look at, she's just Superman's cousin, no big deal. It is what it is. So I think the genius that show does is the fact that it's an entry point for the audience, right? And it informs the audience that, yes, this character is very much like Superman and Clark Kent, because we at that point probably we don't have the freedom to make that show, but it's the familiarity, I think, that really helps the audience kind of buy into that character. It's the fact that, yeah, she is a lot like Clark Kent. She is a little bumbly. She is a lot like Superman. She's very heroic and stoic. But I think that's great because the majority of the world knows Superman so well. Superman is accessible to everybody, to boys, girls, everything. And I think that's kind of what the show really grabbed onto, was the fact that they could do that, and it would allow tell everybody all over the world to say, hey, even though this isn't Superman, this is Supergirl, we're going to give you a lot of what that character has to offer. And on top of that, into being something more. And now you also mentioned the fact that Superman is older than Superman. And again, I think it's that entry point. It's showing audiences that it's telling the story of a young woman who is still growing, who's still finding her place in the world, who's allowed to kind of explore these different parts of herself, and it allows her to grow with the audience. And it's a beautiful entry point for young girls as well, to kind of show them that you can be flawed as a human being, and not even just as a woman, but as a human, you're allowed to be flawed. And it teaches young boys, little boys, a different mindset of how potentially how women can think about things. So, and I think because of that, that show does that very, very well. And Melissa Benoist, I think, does an exception. That character, she's very fun. She's heroic. She also is lighthearted, has good comedic relief to her. She's got levity, so she's got these different sides to her. When she needs to step up to the plate and swing and hit a home run, she can do that. She can do it as Kara, or she can do it as Supergirl. Mostly she does it as. So the fact that we now have this character who, sure, it was spun off from Arrow, but you got to look at the character and the series of Arrow and what it's kind of done. It's dropped off drastically. I agree with you.
It's gone.
The first of that show are good, but 3 and 4, and I hate to say it, like potentially into the future for 5. Oh my God! Like I can't even get through that show. With Lucifer, I think the biggest problem with Lucifer is the fact that who watches it? I mean, I know it has an audience, but I just don't think it has an audience big enough, and that brand doesn't have the recognition that Supergirl has to not only be so influential, but to tell a story that potentially has the lane. I mean, now they're coming over in a Flash. Who knows? They might merge the verses together. We now have Superman, and they were able to give us a Superman that's different enough that we can now see how different those two characters are. And on top of that, I mean, the fact that Melissa Benoist was able to make a show and then win, I think, like 3 or 4 awards for it, I think is a huge influence and creation for not even just girls, honestly, for everybody to see that these characters, even though they're from the same thread and the same cloth as other big, huge mainstream characters, that they still have an opportunity to grow and be as important as Superman.
So I watch every show in the DC universe, and I just
God bless you.
I need to tell a story about the one time. Yeah, the Flash has made me cry once or twice. I need to tell you about a time when the show Arrow, without having any action or any sad moment, made me shake with anticipation and end up crying tears of joy at the end of the episode. And that's the episode right after, in season 2, when we find out Slade is the big bad and we're all shocked. And this is like the episode after, maybe 2 episodes, where Slade is simply walking Moira Queen and Thea Queen around the house, just taking a tour of the Queen house. This episode, all they do is walk around the house as Oliver follows, waiting for Slade to make his move. When he never makes his move, it ends up just being a big standoff. But the whole episode, you're shaking with anticipation because of how much you know about these two characters, and they're now about to face off. Eventually, Roy comes in. You see a Mirakuru Roy, who's all strong, like the one guy that can maybe take Slade on, but not really because he's not fully trained. And you're just standing there like, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? That's because you're so connected to all of these characters. It's so much more difficult to be a menacing villain with no CGI, with no altered voiceover. It's just a man in a mask that's just physically imposing. And Manu Bennett does a fantastic job portraying this guy. And while I think Kara's compelling, or she's like a charming girl, it's cool. Her sappy love stories, which they've decided to maybe not do this season, often get in the way of her development for me, and I don't find her as compelling because of them. And Lucifer's a good show. I think that it's fine, but he has no chemistry with the cast around him, and that's his biggest issue, where Slade is just so perfect for the role, and he does it with less screen time. He's not the title character like your two characters. He's a villain that you enjoy seeing much more, and I agree with Adam that the show has dropped off because Slade is gone. That was their best villain, and he hasn't appeared back because of the movies, obviously, but he was their best villain, and that's why the show has dropped off, if you ask me, because they're lacking those compelling villains like we had with Slade Wilson.
So I've heard a lot from Adam and I've heard a lot from Brad. So if you're okay with that, I'd like to take that as I've gotten the meat of your arguments, but the only person I really haven't heard enough from yet is Langley. So Langley, if I can get to your closing on Lucifer, just give me a better idea of why Lucifer is the best character amongst these other two and why he was your pick.
Well, I would say, in a weird twist of fate, Adam actually demonstrated why he is a compelling character. Like you said, nobody is watching Lucifer season 1, and that is a shame because it's a good show. But on the basis of the performance of and that particular character, he has managed to pull enough of an audience to where they renewed it for a second season because they actually believe in performance and that particular character and the potential of what you can do with the concept and the character of Lucifer Morningstar. They actually managed to make the devil and at the same time sympathetic and interesting. Because I think one of the things that they do is they don't use religion. It's there, but they don't, him personally, he doesn't talk about God or the devil or angels in the sense of they're these grand epic beings. He talks about them in a very relatable way of my mom, my dad. And in a weird way, that brings the devil down to a level where you can relate to him. And at the same time, you actually enjoy watching his antics and you enjoy him actually discovering his humanity, if that's even possible for the devil. Now, as far as the argument of Slade Wilson is concerned, was anyone really all that shocked that he was going to be the villain of season 2?
My friends were. The people that don't know they were.
Even if you don't watch, or even if you don't read the comic books, they telegraphed that in season 1 and the beginning of season 2. And I would actually say, as far as a character is concerned, his arc is not completed. His arc was just begun, and he is not on the show, not just because they're making a movie and they're using Deathstroke, but Manu Bennett has issues with the actual production staff of Arrow. Now, that has nothing to do with the character itself, but I would argue that because of that, you probably are never going to see him on the show again unless they recast the character. And to me, yes, there's a reason why they call him Slade Wilson and they don't really call him Deathstroke all that much, not as much as they should, because he is not Deathstroke the Terminator yet. He is not the guy that's a mercenary. He's basically Oliver's good buddy that, yes, we fell in love with him in season 1, and then he became the villain, but they turned him into basically, he's just crazy. He's psychotic. He's nutso because of the Mirakuru. The Mirakuru is gone. Now we get to see the Slade Wilson, the Deathstroke that he should be, but we don't get to see it because his arc is finished. It's done. And for me, that, like, at least with Supergirl and with Lucifer, we get the opportunity to continue and see those characters grow. With Deathstroke, like you said, we probably are not going to see that. And I think his character arc that they began is ruined because of that. And now, whether it's because of outside forces, who knows? But just on that alone, his character is not nearly where it should be, in my opinion.
All right, guys, I want to call it there. Ashley and Joe, give me some of the facts in this round.
All right, facts seem to be pretty clean, and then no criticism on Langley's argument or anything, but that when we're watching Lucifer, it made us think of this joke from 30 Rock about when
It's
Jack,
like in the last season.
Yeah, Jack was trying to tank the network, and he was a detective on a show, but he was God instead of Lucifer and had a lot of similar powers. But other than that tangent, and Lucifer is a much better show than that was on the NBC network. Everything seemed pretty clean.
What did the Twitter say? I'm sure they have
Twitter
lots of
is a fire with lots of things. There's a lot of love for all three choices in general. But we have a lot of other alternates, including Cisco. Raul Rodriguez suggested Cisco from The Flash.
He was my second choice.
Yeah. And then Samuel Catlin brought up my personal favorite, and it's at least two of them he brought up, but I really love the guy they got to play Penguin for Gotham. I actually think that entire show is cast incredibly well. And he also brought up the guy who's playing Edward Nygma, or just Edward Nygma in general in Gotham. What else do we have? Yeah, it's just in general a lot of love, a lot of suggestions. There's a couple people that I might give Lucifer a shot now, thanks to Langley's suggestion. We watched it last night for the first time, thanks to Langley picking it, and it was pretty fantastic. And Cassidy from Preacher is another one that I just noticed popped up.
Awesome. Well, this is a difficult round. A lot of you guys talked about the shows versus the characters, and I think I'm trying to take the show aspect out of it. Arrow is the third and fourth season are not as good on Arrow, and I think the Deathstroke seasons are some of the best. Supergirl's only just now entering its second season, and Langley's show, while not very popular yet, has gotten its second season. So when I'm listening to the arguments, though, I'm trying to look for the character that has had the most impact. And in this case, too, there is a bit of subjectivity to that. So I was also looking for the passion and the connection that the person who was arguing had for their characters. And I heard that more from Adam and Brad. So it's between Supergirl for me, where the audience is very familiar with the Superman concept, but it's brought it in a different way to be more accessible, specifically to a female audience. And Brad with Deathstroke, where he probably has one of the best characters on the show, certainly one of the best villains that Arrow has done, and even all of the shows may have done. I think for me, and this was really difficult, I think for me, Supergirl has the slight edge because it's an entire show has to be carried by this one character concept. And I think that doing the Superman idea in a different way that doesn't just shut the show down right away. People see Superman and they're like, oh, well, she's not Superman. I think she had a more uphill battle, and they've really nailed Supergirl. Melissa, I think I said her name right, is amazing as Supergirl. I think that's my choice. I'm going to go pick Adam, but it was really close for me. So good job, guys. What did the poll say?
The poll is going to go 57% for Deathstroke.
Wow. I just cannot nail it today.
And 43% for Supergirl, with Lucifer disappointingly pulling 0% because
I figured
he is 100% charming.
Well, guys, that means Adam, you've got 3 points, and Langley, you have 1. That means you guys are moving on. Brad, you didn't get any points today, but you definitely fought well. So congratulations on your debut.
Man. Good fight.
You did fantastic. Nothing to be disappointed by here. It is a tough show, and there's only 4 rounds to get points, so don't feel bad. But I will need your help here on the lightning round as we move into the second half of the show. So Langley and Adam, you will be battling it out in the best of 5. So the first person to get 3 points will win. Let me just get to my right page here. All right. So I'll go to Brad and Ashley and Joe for help on this round. You'll have 20 seconds to make your initial argument and 10 seconds for rebuttals. Ashley, I have the timer here, so I can actually keep time as we're going to make it easier for you guys to listen. And let's get into the speed round. I'm just writing names down here so I know who's what. All right, round 1. Who is the better Batman? Val Kilmer or George Clooney?
Kilmer.
Yeah.
So remember Langley earlier today when you said I could make an argument for George Clooney,
Yeah.
but I may not get to do it. Yeah. So I didn't want these 2 dramatic actors to be left behind. So we're going to start with Adam. Adam, you'll have 20 seconds to make your argument. Time starts when you start talking.
Okay, I would say that Val Kilmer is the better Batman because his portrayal of Batman is much closer to what we've come to kind of know Batman. He's dark, he's brooding. He definitely encapsulates kind of more of the personality of Batman. He's definitely more different type of fighter that I think is a lot stronger than George Clooney's portrayal. George Clooney's portrayal was just a bit too campy. Like I said, he's the modern Adam West.
Awesome. Langley, time starts when you start talking.
Okay. I would say that George Clooney, like you said, he is the modern Adam West, and if you like that particular style of Batman, he's great at it. Also, I would say that Val Kilmer basically tricked everyone into thinking that they wanted a more campier Batman, which basically that movie that he's in is a success. Chicks dig the car. There's all these phrases that he says. He's so...
10-second rebuttal from Adam.
I would say the biggest problem with the movie is that he kind of is one of the reasons that movie killed the franchise of Batman in 1997. With Val Kilmer, I think there was progression, there was potential.
Langley.
George Clooney commits, whereas Val Kilmer does not. He is sleepwalking through that entire movie. George Clooney commits to the goofiness, the campiness, and all of it. It's a terrible movie, but his performance is up to par.
All right. Woo.
Good job, Langley.
What a turd sandwich we are dealing with right here.
I know, right?
Brand, who did you like of the two arguments?
I think Langley had a little bit of an uphill battle, and he almost sold me there at the end. But I'm gonna have to go Kilmer.
Ash and Joe, who would you have picked?
I think we both agreed for Clune.
Actually,
Oh.
no.
I'm going to say Clune personally.
I was going to go Kilmer because Adam said the thing that I was waiting for, that Clooney was a franchise killer, and that sold me more than anything else. Sorry, buddy.
On the other hand, for me, Langley's kind of right. Like, Val Kilmer sleptwalked through Batman, and Clooney committed to the camp and the cheese. So,
Yeah, it's tough for me. I think, though, the franchise killer statement is the killer in this question, too. That's why I give the slight edge to Adam. So for me, Adam gets the point for round one. That was really close.
Good job. Good job.
That was really close. Well done.
Hey, but you argued George Clooney pretty well, I got to say.
You really did.
Yeah.
You really did. Adam, to knock him out, you should just mention the nipples on the suit, and you would have gotten him. That would have been the end.
Yeah, I know.
That was the
Kilmer had
jugular.
Nipples.
Kilmer had them too,
He did.
Kilmer had nipples too.
He did.
They were way more pronounced on that Clooney suit, though.
Yeah,
Like,
they were.
They were the Kilmer suit, but they were like full-fledged nipples on the Clooney suit.
You could cut through ice blades with those things.
So round two, TV or film. What is Danny DeVito's best performance?
It's
Danny
Always
DeVito.
Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay. So
Frank
Frank.
Reynolds.
Okay.
Fuck it. I'll go with the Penguin. Sorry.
There you go. I was like, I threw a softball up here in the in the comic book game. All right, so let's see here. All right, so Penguin versus Frank, but Frank will go first. Langley, whenever you're ready.
Danny DeVito is at his best when he's a vulgar, misogynistic piece of crap. And he is never as good as he is on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. When he came onto that show, it not only revitalized that show, it made it into a hit. He's having a ball on it. He can be as brash and as disgusting as he wants to be, and it gets better with every season.
Okay, Adam, whenever you're ready.
Gross and misogynistic. That is the absolute definition of what he is in Batman Returns as the Penguin. He's gross, he's grotesque, he's disgusting. Even though he cannot stand physically to Batman, he very much knows how to tear that down in that particular movie, and it's just nasty.
All right, and time. So Langley, go ahead with your rebuttal.
You want to talk about a franchise killer? Him biting that guy's nose off in Batman Returns is why we got the campy Batman, and why Tim Burton didn't do any more Batman movies, because they scared children and didn't sell enough toys.
I would really considering they made 2 other sequels. On top of that, I was able to do something he had never really done before, which is being something that's so not Danny DeVito that it was a completely different type of portrayal. I feel like in Always Sunny, he is kind of just Danny DeVito that we see in other things.
All right, guys, good fight. We'll start with Ashley and Joe on this one. Who would you have picked?
I would go with Langley with Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Some of the things he said in his first argument really stayed with me about him being gross and vile and saving the show.
The second thing, I also agree, Langley, totally, because in his rebuttal argument, he's like, Penguin biting the nose off the dude is why we stopped getting decent Batman movies. And I'm like, okay, yeah.
Brad, who would you have picked?
I think I agree, and I also want to point out that I think Adam might have contradicted himself a little bit at the beginning. The first argument, he says, he's playing the same DeVito gross role that's misogynistic. But then in the second argument, he mentions that it's a totally different role that he doesn't usually play, which kind of contradicts a little bit.
That's a fair point. Well, the point will go to Langley here. I was leaning a little bit more Penguin because I don't think it's franchise killer. That to me is the best of that era of Batman. I love Batman Returns. I'll go with Langley on this. So Langley, you get the point. Well done. And that means we are tied going into question number 3. Which comic book female should be the next president?
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
Amanda Waller.
Wow. What a pick. Wonder Woman versus Waller. Go for it, Adam, whenever you're ready.
Well, first of all, I think the most important thing about Wonder Woman is that she is the perfect representation from a female perspective of optimism. She would do everything that she can to steer everything in the best possible way to be the most virtuous representation of mankind, regardless of the fact that she is a woman. I think that would empower her even more so with where we are today in modern society, and she would be able to build a much stronger foundation.
Okay, Langley, Amanda Waller.
Where we are as a society right now, we need somebody who can not only do the job, but get shit done in a really ruthless way. And I think Amanda Waller would do that. Optimism is great, but the only reason that Wonder Woman can be optimistic is because Amanda Waller is taking care of shit behind the scenes.
All right, you have a few more seconds?
Yeah.
And now you don't. Okay,
I would say the biggest issue with Amanda Waller is the fact that she is this dastardly crooked character who from some perspective, she might do things a certain way, but not the right way of doing things. And I think we need somebody to really be empowered to really be the best representation.
Okay, and Langley.
In the films, yes, she kills people that work for her, but I would say in the comic book, she gets things done because she's the person that we need, not the person that we want.
All right. Brad, who would you pick for president in this?
America is a democracy. We must want our president. I think the argument that Waller is just kind of conniving. I think first of all she wouldn't get voted into office, and second of all, I think that Wonder Woman, at least we need to have an honest president. So I'm going to go with Wonder Woman.
All right, Ash and Joe.
I'll say it first. I'm going to go with Wonder Woman only because Langley never brought up the fact that I don't think Wonder Woman would qualify to be the president because she's not from America, and you have to be from America. But he never said that. And
technicality would have worked.
I think she could probably be better if she were allowed to be the president.
Yeah, Joe, did you want to weigh in?
I was kind of torn because that was in the back of my mind, but going from the arguments, I prefer an optimism concept, like someone that could lead lead by example, and Wonder Woman would probably be the leader of example that we would rather have. But yeah, I'm going to go with Wonder Woman.
I will also go with Wonder Woman, but I thought that the argument for Waller was pretty close. And if you and I think Ash is right. I think Ash is right. If you had kind of pointed out that one spot, you probably would have gotten him. But that was really close. But well done. Wonder Woman gets the point. So Adam 2 and Langley 1. We are going into speed round number 4. Who is comics' best character whose name starts with the letter D?
Dr. Doom.
Okay. Adam?
Let's see. I'm going to go with Deadpool.
Deadpool. All right. The answer, of course, was Dum Dum Dugan, but that's okay. Let's start with Langley. Whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay. When it comes to a character in any form of literature, you want someone who is not only interesting and compelling, but also has many sides to them. Dr. Doom has been a villain, he's been a hero, and he has a crazy backstory that would make for a great film someday if we ever get to see it. He's a mixture of magic and technology, and right now he is about to take...
Adam?
I would say Deadpool is the best because primarily because of the fact of kind of who he is. He is this kind of deranged guy. He's got all these different types of layers, and he provides the audience with something unique, which is breaking the fourth wall, to be able to communicate directly with the audience, and it really helps to pull readers into the comics more. And we've seen that from the movie, and I think it also is amazing what that character can do overall.
Langley, 10 seconds.
Deadpool at its core is annoying, and breaking the fourth wall has become the crutch of modern day storytelling. He's funny and he's great for a laugh, but he is not compelling in comparison to Dr. Doom.
You say that it's become a crutch of modern storytelling. You got to remember that when that comic book was originated, that was something unique to that character. So I think that was able to really create kind of an entry audience and was able to be a little bit more relatable and crazy.
All right, Joe and Ashley, start us off. What did you pick?
Between these two, it's hard to say. I'm going to go with Dr. Doom because of some of the points he brought up. I don't think the best point was brought up, but yes, I'm going to go with Dr. Doom.
And see, I thought Langley had a good point, but then Adam had a good counterpoint about like when Deadpool was originally brought to the comic universe, that was unique about him. So I think that point stands. So I was going to go with Adam for Deadpool.
Brad, what did you pick?
I honestly didn't like either of the arguments, but I think
that was the question, Brad.
I'll go with Jack. No, I'm going with I think I'll go with Deadpool just because it seemed different. I don't know.
I think the problem for me was Adam didn't take on Dr. Doom. The fact that Deadpool was successful and Dr. Doom has yet to be successful. Langley sort of alluded to that in saying, like, we still have yet to get that, but it wasn't really jumped on. The fourth wall thing for me, I don't feel like the fourth wall breaking is really a current trope that has been ruined by Deadpool. I think it only enhances Deadpool. This is really tight for me.
We had that trope in House of Cards, for example.
Yeah, we do. We do, but not to the extreme as it's in Deadpool. Oh boy, this is tough. I'm gonna go with Dr. Doom, though. I think I'm gonna give it to Dr. Doom, and we'll go through one more because that was so close. So let's break the tie the good old fashioned way and do one more question.
I think it's funny that both characters chosen, D was either in their title or their code name, so to speak, but both of their actual names didn't start with D.
Yeah, like I was surprised no one said Daredevil because stuff like that. But okay, so let's do the final question to make sure we get this right. These two comic book movies are on cable. Which do you watch? X-Men Origins Wolverine or The Wolverine?
The Wolverine.
The Wolverine.
Oh, I heard it from Adam first. So that means you're getting Origins, Langley.
Langley, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's all right. That's okay.
And Adam, whenever you're ready.
Holy crap! X-Men Origins Wolverine piece of garbage since Batman and Robin. It does a complete risk to the character. It doesn't explore anything interesting about the character. The least is a character study of that character and gave us something more than just an action piece. It was very much about sort of who that character is, what he represents, and taking him outside of the X-Men universe as we've seen him in every single other movie.
All right, Langley.
Okay. The Wolverine is boring up until its exceptionally boring and commonplace end action sequence. Wolverine Origins, you can watch that and have a good time laughing at the effects and how terrible that movie is. And it gave us Deadpool in the cinematic universe, which is a great thing about that performance by Ryan Reynolds.
Unfortunately, it gave us a Deadpool that everyone hated, and because of that, we had to get a proper Deadpool. And I don't think Wolverine is boring at all. I would say that X-Men Origins is boring because it offers us absolutely nothing. At least with Wolverine, we get a character study.
Langley?
The Wolverine is boring because it gives us dour, sour Wolverine, and on top of it, he's still talking and pining after Jean Grey. Yeah, it's better than Wolverine Origins, but it's not the greatest film.
All right. Brad, you get the first thought. Who do you pick?
Oh, my God.
Let's go. I think I have to. I heard too much boring back and forth, and I think I'll have to go with Adam because he did make other points other than the boring point where Langley kind of got hung up on that.
Joe and Ash.
I'm going to have to go with Adam as well, mostly because Langley ended his last rebuttal, said
that too.
The other one is better.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And to top it all off, Langley actually brought up Deadpool himself, which is something I would have stayed as far away from as possible in Origins, because Adam didn't say anything about it, and you gave it to him. So that means Wolverine is the winner. Adam, you are the winner of today's Fan Friction. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
If I was doing it, I would have brought out that without Origins, we might not have the Deadpool movie we have today.
Oh, Deadpool. Goodness gracious. Thank God he fixed that. Guys, great fight today. Well done, everybody.
So fun. Thank you guys so much, man. This was so fun. You guys are great fighters.
Thank you. I really appreciate you being on the show. This was a fantastic treat for us. Real quick, I just want to go through everybody so we can find out where you all are. Ash and Joe, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find us at I'm at Drake Masters.
And I'm at _Mrs. Davis.
And you can find us here every other Sunday on the TUFF channel, where we do BFF, where we talk about movies we've seen for the first time because of this show.
And then talk about the fight afterward and read your tweets about whatever question we've come up with. So fun times.
Awesome. Brad, where can we find you, man?
Twitter at Bradley_Sloan or at comicsverse.com, where we use graphic novels as a medium to discuss political and social issues, the important stuff. And anything comic related, not just the novels, but shows and everything. I've been reviewing the new Green Arrow Rebirth series, and it's been interesting.
Fantastic. And thank you very much again for being a new fighter here today. You did a great job. Again, scores don't really mean anything. The points don't matter. We're kind of like the Whose Line Is It Anyway of internet shows. Langley, we haven't seen your face since about halfway through the show, but please tell us where we can find you.
Well, when it actually works and you can actually see my actual face live, you can sometimes find me here, or you can find me on Twitter at Langley and Neely. I'm not going to do this until I have a new computer, I think, because I'm getting sick and tired of nobody being able to see my face. So, yeah.
But you fight very well, sir, whether we see you or not, so well done today.
Well,
Adam,
thank you.
We got to hear a little bit earlier, but if you want to tell everybody again where we can find you on the internet.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Adam Hlavik, and we're also on Superhero News, youtube.com/superhero news. We break down the latest stuff going on in all superhero news from comics, TV, and movies. And just like Comicsverse, we definitely try to give a little bit of more kind of political voice as to why certain things are very important in the comic book world. So that's that.
Thank you again for being a part of our show today. Two final things. One, we do this as a labor of love of the Screen Junkies channel, which is where the format comes from. So if you have not heard of the Screen Junkies before, please check out the description below, where you can find links to their page and to Screen Junkies Plus. They have over 500 different shows, 500 total shows that you can watch on their Screen Junkies Plus channel. It's fantastic. We do this as appreciation to them. So please check them out whenever you can. And finally, next week, a little programming note for everyone. We are coming back in 1 week, next Saturday, for our final show of this year, and it will star the guys from Action Movie Anatomy versus Brian Hurst, our TUFF champion. So we hope you will join us on Saturday next week at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific, for that great show. So we hope to see you there. Other than that, guys, it was fantastic to see everyone again on a Sunday. Thank you for coming. Well done, Adam. Congratulations on your win.
Thank you very much.
We will see you all next time. Take care and goodbye.